Hi everyone, my name is Carolyn Brown. I'm one of the Assistant Arts Officers with Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council Arts Office. Delighted to welcome you here this morning along with my colleagues in Music Network, Deirdre, Kieran and Jamie, to introduce you for the DLR Musicians in Residence 2020-25. This is just a brief information session. All the information is in the guidelines, which I'm sure all of you have looked at and read in advance. If not, Kieran's going to pop up the file there for it. But yeah, I'll just run through briefly what we're going to talk about in today's meeting. Shouldn't be too long, kind of half an hour or so, I'd imagine. So we will give an introduction to the residency scheme. And then Deirdre will introduce you to the application process and all the details around making your application. We'll give you a quick virtual tour of DLR Lexicon, including the studio space. And then we'll give an overview of some of the previous residencies to give you an idea of the type of things that have been done in the past. And then at the end, there'll be lots of time for questions and answers. So please, as we're going through, do kind of start thinking about questions and either popping them into the chat or you can ask us at the very end there. So in terms of the introduction to the residency scheme, it is funded by Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council and the Arts Council. It's managed by Music Network, so the application process goes through them and any queries should go through them. The residencies give an opportunity to develop and showcase new work. It can be compositional or performance-based or a chance to develop a new artistic collaboration. This year we have 2 residencies, one for established musicians and one for emerging musicians. There is an increase in fees this year for 2025. So for the established, it is 12,000 and for the emerging, it's 7,500. So please do just bear that in mind when you're thinking of your application. If it's one of you or 2 of you or 3 in a collaboration or a group, you know that the fee would be sufficient for everything, to cover everything you need and for all the participants. The residencies will take place between May and November of 2025. We will talk to you about what dates and we are flexible around that, bearing in mind that the studio space where most of the residency is based is a busy space. So we will try and set those dates early on. Some people like to have a big bulk dates where they have maybe 5 days in a row. Other people prefer to spread them out over the time frame. So we are open to that. And there is other rooms available in the Lexicon meeting rooms, which are available for quieter work as well. It's essential in terms of the residencies that all members of the creative team are paid fairly. So as I say, bear that in mind when you're looking at the fees. And then the access to the studio space is up to 15 days for the established residency and up to 10 days for the emerging. And as I mentioned, there is other spaces available in addition to that as well. At the end or throughout the residency, we would anticipate that there will be 1 concert to present new work. And then we'd also anticipate that there would be 1 additional public event. So that can vary and has varied over the years from things like workshops to maybe an outdoor performance to a masterclass or something in a school or a residential care setting. So we're very open to what that might be. It doesn't need to be a formal concert. It can be something quite different there. So, I mean, it's always nice to see some imaginative proposals in there. So I'll pass you over to Deirdre and Music Network now to talk you through the application process.
Thanks, Carolyn. So the application process is an online application process. You can visit musicnetwork.ie or dlrcoco.ie to register and set up your profile. So we use the submittable platform, which is very user-friendly. So once you've set up your profile, you can complete your application in stages. So you can save a draft as many times as you like, which can be very useful as you plan your application. Now, a really important thing is that you receive a confirmation email from us once your application has been submitted. So once you've submitted it, if you check your inbox or your spam folder, for example, if it's mistakenly directed there, just make sure you have that confirmation email. And if not, get in touch with us straight away at operations@musicnetwork.ie so we can help resolve any technical issue that may have arisen as you're trying to submit your application. Then just to mention that late applications, they cannot be accepted. You know, the window of the online system will close at 2 p.m. on the 21st of February. So really be mindful of that date. And we'd encourage you to submit in advance of the 21st if you can, just to avoid any technical hitches that you may have on the day. So moving on then, just to highlight some of the support materials that you'll be asked to upload as part of the application form. So the first of these is an outline of your proposed residency program of work. So that's essentially, outlining your plan, what you want to achieve, how you're going to go about that. Are you going to collaborate with others? Will you involve mentors? How will this residency, I suppose, help you maybe in your career path or where you're at the moment? Do you want to kind of focus on a new skill, for example, or create a new body of work? All of those things you'd outline in the plan. You're also asked to submit your CV and biographies. So, for example, if you're collaborating with others, you might be applying as an ensemble. You'd have an ensemble, a CV or biography detailing your experience, but also individual biographies as well of members of the group or of, for example, collaborators if it's a new collective that you're bringing together for this residency. Also, if you're planning to work with a mentor, it would be important to include their biography or CV there as well. You're also asked to upload 2 contrasting audio samples. So that's, a chance to, I suppose, showcase what it is you do. You can upload those as MP3s or as links, for example, to YouTube files online or SoundCloud files. Just to say, if you are uploading, a link to a file, just make sure that it's accessible, that it isn't password protected, for example, so that the panel will be able to listen to the samples. And if it is, just make sure to include the access information there. Just a couple of other things to mention about the audio samples. Make sure they're kind of relevant to your proposal, that you're playing or singing, for example, can be clearly heard in a sample, and that it's the best representation of your work. It doesn't have to be a CD album quality, but of a high enough audio quality that the panelists can hear your performance. And then just one last thing to mention is, obviously the panel have a limited amount of time. So for example, if you're uploading a large file, maybe the first half of a concert, for example, if there's a particular track or part of the audio file that you want the panel to listen to, just put that down, like listen from 12 minutes and 3 seconds, for example, and the panel will go straight to that. So it just kind of streamlines the process for everyone. Then you're also asked to upload a 1-minute video clip to outline your ideas. And that's essentially just an opportunity to put in your own words what you want to achieve and why. That can be just a simple recording made on your mobile phone, for example. As we mentioned earlier, you'll be asked to submit a detailed budget for your project. This can be artist fees, which, just be sure to include yourself in that and make sure you and all the artists involved are fairly paid and remunerated for your work. It can include expenses like travel expenses, for example. If you have technical costs, if you're needing to hire in equipment, and Kieran will speak about that more in a few minutes, but anything like that needs to go into the residency budget. And another thing to mention is if you require, if you don't already have public liability insurance, that cost would need to be factored into your residency budget as well. And then finally, and this is new for this year, you're asked to submit 2 letters of recommendation. And for emerging artists, this may be, for example, recommendation, a letter from a mentor or a teacher, for example. For established artists, this could be more something like a letter from a collaborator or a letter of recommendation from a peer, or, for example, someone who might have presented your work in concert. So really it's about asking someone who can speak as to the quality of your work and to submit 2 letters of recommendation from them. So I think that's that covered. I think I'm handing back to Carolyn now to do the virtual tour.
Hi there. So we should have just a little video here now of the lexicon, and we'll start playing. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the space. It's 10 years old, the largest public library in the country. This is the exterior as you come in through the Hague Terrace entrance. So you come in here now to level 3. And this is the security desk on the main level of the lexicon. And this brings you down through level 3 here. You go downstairs You can go either via the lift or via the stairs down to level 1, where the studio space is based. The studio is at the back of the cafe area, which you can see here. This is just coming into the studio space here. It is a 120-seater venue. The staging, as you can see, is on the flat. The seats are fully retractable, so it can become a black box space. This brings you into the backstage area. You can see we have an upright piano, which is available for the residency should people wish to have them. We have 2 dressing rooms with bathrooms, etc. in them. And then this is the backstage area where things are stored and leads you directly onto the car park area. So you can bring any equipment directly from the car park through to the studio space. The doors are a relatively big size there. So this is bringing you upstairs into the control room. So you can see here, looking down on the studio space, there is a lighting desk and a sound desk. Kieran will talk more about those, I think, but just to mention that the lighting is on some presets and is quite difficult to change. There you can see the sound desk and the lighting desk. So as I mentioned, the lights are all on kind of presets there. So we tend not to change those unless there's a really significant reason. It is quite tricky to change them. And then coming back down the stairs, back out into the studio space there. And again, here's the house lights. So they're again on different presets from very bright to quite a dim setting. So the acoustic in the studio space is lovely. All the musicians and residents have told us that over the years, that there is a nice acoustic in there. There is curtains, drapes that can be drawn around depending on what you want the acoustic to be like. And there is a projector and a screen. Some of our musicians and residents have chosen to use that as well. This is one of the meeting rooms that are available. I mentioned earlier, in terms of if there is quieter work that needs to be done, they look out over the sea, have a beautiful view. This is the main reading area in the library. So you can see it's quite a beautiful building, and some of our musicians and residents have performed in spaces such as this, as opposed to being based in the studio space. This is level 5, which is the main study area, and is heavily used by students. And then this is our municipal gallery. And again, some of our musicians and residents have chosen to do concerts in this space, and it actually works really well. It can fit about kind of 70 people as a seated audience, and it's just a slightly more informal setting for a concert than the studio space downstairs. So the Lexicon is a hugely visited building, so there is a lot of opportunities to engage with the public while you're there. We would have a phenomenal number of visitors through the building, so it's a great space for musicians and residents to get access to the public and have an opportunity for them to showcase the work. I think that's the end of the video there, so I think I'll pass over again to, is it Kieran, to discuss the next slide.
Hi everyone. I'm just going to have a little chat about the studio space and the kind of technical side of things and what is there in the space available. So essentially, there are some things that are available to you in the studio. They have an equipment list here. There is the mixing desk, a 24-channel Allen and Heath desk that you would have seen in the video. There are a number of microphones and stands, GI box and some extension cables. There is the upright piano as well and the projector. So that's kind of what's there in situ in the studio. What isn't included is a PA system, so the kind of speakers for performance or monitors or any kind of backline like that. So anything that you might require for a final concert or that you might need kind of during your residency, that would need to be hired and it would need to be accounted for in your budget. There's also no in-house kind of technician at the studio. So again, if you wanted a sound engineer for the final concert, that would be something you'd need to include in your budget, just because there's kind of nobody there in-house to do that. There are two speakers hung from the ceiling, which you might see in the next image, but they are not really suitable for music performance. Just in case you might have seen them before, but yeah, they're really for a music performance. A PA system would need to be hired in. Just to note on the piano, if that was going to be used during the residency, it would need to be tuned, and the cost of tuning would need to be included again within your budget. Just as that's not something that's kind of done all the time. It would be just need to be done for the project if you were using it. And the projector as well is hung from the ceiling, and that can't be kind of taken down. It's kind of stuck up at the ceiling, but there is a screen that will project to the back of the studio space. So you'll see here the kind of two images of the studio, one with the house lights up and then one with a more stage light setting. As Carolyn mentioned earlier, the studio lights are fixed, and the focus and spot positions can't really be changed. But there are a number of settings that can be used that kind of really it covers the whole stage area. So there are a number of settings there that would be suitable for your performance at the end. But yeah, we just kind of can't move the lights themselves or adjust the spots or anything like that. So really it's a black box space is kind of the way to think about it in terms of speakers and PA and stuff like that. So if there is anything for your final concert that you might need, it will be something that will need to be hired in. So just bear that in mind when you're doing up your budget document, because the cost for PA hire or engineer would be needed to be included there with that. So that is just some of the technical information about the studio space, and I'm going to hand back over to Deirdre now, who will give you an overview of some of the previous residencies.
Thanks, Kieran. So yeah, we're just going to show you a sample of some work of previous resident or musicians in residence, and before we come to the Q&A. So just to mention, if you have any questions, do pop them into the Q&A box there, and we'll come to those after you have a quick look at some past resident artists. So the first of these, we have two videos to show you. The first of these is our emerging musician in residence from last year, Luke Dunford, fantastic pianist, and he was collaborating with another wonderful artist, Kieran O'Malley, and together they created a new collection of songs in the funk soul genre, broadly speaking, and that was their aim for the residency, was to create new music with a view to recording it at a later date. So here you're going to hear a sample of one of the songs they worked on during the residency.
Just because he's a brother to you, don't mean that it can't do wrong to you. He'd do anything for you, do anything, and lead you down a straight path till you can see the darkness is coming, it's coming too fast. Hit you like a full house when you're down, it can't be the first, it won't be the last, it's dirty dealings.
So yeah, we've had a really broad range of projects over the years, all styles of genre, you know, people who are collaborating, cross-genre, cross-art form. So we just wanted to show you a quick sample of a few of these. The first, there's three in this next clip. The first of these is Susan McKeown, and she's a fantastic singer-songwriter. And you'll see her here performing a new song with Ger Kiley on guitar and Trevor Hutchinson on bass. And Susan researched a lot of material in the Lexicon Library, actually, which inspired the collection of songs she wrote. And she was mainly interested in researching the lives of extraordinary women who had lived in past times in Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown. So that was a really interesting project. Following that, you're going to see a clip, very different type of project from a Baroque specialist, Darren Cornish-Moore. He's a trumpet player, and you'll see him performing with Malcolm Proud. And his project was about showcasing the music of a lesser known 18th century composer called Thomas Rosengrave. And in this clip, you're going to see as well that Darren used the projector to project images on screen while he was playing. So that's just another way, I suppose, he enhanced his performance. And then finally, the last clip features the musician in residence, Eamon Cagney. And he's a percussionist, and you'll see him here performing with Newell Tsumbu. But his project actually incorporated storytelling as well, which was another element of his practice. And you're going to hear music that he had interspersed with the storytelling here. So a really broad range of projects you're about to see, but this is just meant as a guide. It's not, meant to kind of direct you in any particular way, but just to show how open it is. We're delighted to, receive a really broad range of ideas in terms of the projects you want to propose. So you might play that, Kieran.
I believe in the holiness of the heart's affections, and though I threw off the old man of the sea of Rome, what the human mind can be, natural curiosity. Perhaps it was my Fenian blood that called me home.
Yeah, so you heard some great samples of people's work there. We're going to move on to the Q&A session now. If you have any questions, that you can pop them into the Q&A box, and we'll try and answer them as best we can for you here. I might just read out the first one there. So the first is from Paul. The guidelines state public liability insurance, but also employer's liability. In what circumstances would you require employer's liability? Do you want to take that one, Carolyn?
Sure, yeah. Employer's liability would only be required where you're becoming an employer. So if you are paying other artists and musicians, you would need to then have employer's liability. Public liability, the other option is for all members of the group, if it's a group, to have public liability insurance. So just to kind of bear that in mind, we can talk to you if you were successful. We can talk to you about how you might go about getting insurance and what specifics would be required in your circumstances, but that would be the general answer, is essentially if you're becoming an employer, you need to have the employer's liability in addition to the public liability insurance.
Great, so hopefully that answers your question, Paul. Enda is asking, as a pianist, I'm particularly interested in either tuning the piano that is there and using it, or alternatively hiring a piano. If I hired a grand piano for the period of the residency, would it be possible to store it in the studio space that is available there at the library? I suppose there's a couple of elements to that. I mean, and if you were hiring a grand piano for the duration, that would be very expensive to do that. And you mightn't also get consecutive days. Isn't that right, Carolyn? Like in terms of the space and the availability.
A couple of things to mention there would be that the doors, well, they are relatively large. The largest we can get in is a mini grand, so that will be your first stumbling block. We have had musicians hire in a mini grand previously. You're welcome to use the piano that is there. If you just book it, let us know when you were booking in your days. You certainly can tune that It's relatively okay. But a lot of what people have done in the past is they've used that for all their rehearsal time and then just hired in a mini grand for one rehearsal day and the concert. And that would really be around budget, as Deirdre mentions, because it would just be kind of prohibitive to be hiring in a baby grand for any extensive period of time. It would really eat into your budget. So you could use the upright that's there. Storing it in the back would be challenging as well because it's a multi-use space. So unless you had consecutive days, we couldn't guarantee who might be in that space in the interim. Well, we, with the best will in the world, try and make sure that everything's looked after. If you have, for instance, a large community group with maybe, you know, a transition year production or something like that with 50 kids in the back, it wouldn't be the best to have a hired piano in there. So we advise people not to leave anything too valuable unless they have consecutive days booked there in the studio, which can be hard to get. You certainly wouldn't get the full 10 or 15 days in a row. That would be highly unlikely within that time frame because there is bookings in already for the period that we're looking at. So what I would recommend really is using the upright initially, and then just having, if you felt it wasn't sufficient, then having a baby grand in for the maybe the final day or two of rehearsal and the performance.
Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question, Enda. And I know you've a bit at the end there just asking where you can find how to, I suppose, create your profile or register to set up for the application process. So that if you go to musicnetwork.ie, there's probably a number of ways into that. There's the what's on section. I think it's also pinned to the top of the homepage. I can see Kieran nodding there. I think there is a link directly from the homepage as well, isn't there, Kieran?
Yeah, so at the very top, when you go to musicnetwork.ie, you'll see a kind of banner that says the application is open. And if you click into there, it'll kind of bring you to the page that has all the guidelines, and it will be the link to submittable for the application form, and where you can sign up is all there.
Great. So yeah, we don't have any further questions here in the Q&A. Will we just give it a minute in case someone's trying to type as we speak? Otherwise, of course, you can get in touch with ourselves at operations@musicnetwork.ie, or you can phone us as well. The numbers on the website if you have any questions, and any questions, then we can direct to Carolyn and Kira in the arts office if needs be, or we can answer them as well depending on what the question is. So certainly do get in touch with us at any stage via any of those methods, and we'll do our best to answer any queries you have. Yes, so there don't seem to be any further questions. So maybe now is a good opportunity to wish everybody well, I guess, Carolyn and Kieran.
So just to say good luck to everybody. Thank you for taking the time to attend the session. If there's anybody who couldn't attend this morning and would like to, it will be on. You'll have the recording on the webpage as well. And just a quick reminder to people of the deadline, which is Friday, 21st of February at 2 p.m. So to just make sure to get it in on time. We don't accept any late applications. So just a final reminder there. But other than that, just best of luck. And as Deirdre said there, if you do have any questions, please do feel free to contact us. I mean, there's no silly questions, and we'd certainly prefer to have questions beforehand then. And do just try your best to kind of put in any questions a couple of days before the deadline, because we all can be quite busy. We run lots of other projects, so to make sure that you have sufficient time to get the answer and upload all your information. So good luck to everyone, and thanks for attending this morning. See you now. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.